This is a quick video to show you how to rebuild a Traxxas big bore shock using the Traxxas shock rebuild kit. First, I need to take off the shock spring by removing the bottom brace. Pull the spring off, as well as the top shock spring brace. And now I need to take off the shock cap. With using a pair of pliers or a crescent wrench, whatever you have, I'm going to use a small screwdriver and loosen up the shock cap. Once you remove the shock cap, you're going to want to dump out all the silicone oil. After the oil is dumped out, you need to go ahead and move on to the rod end. Using a pair of pliers and some foam, you're going to want to hold it in place while you untwist the rod end. Be sure that you use something that will keep the metal from the pliers scraping up the piston rod. Next, you can remove this washer and you're going to push the rod all the way out and grab it by the piston head and pull it out the rest of the way. Next, we're going to be working on removing the C-clip. This is easily the hardest thing to do with rebuilding a big bore shock. Now, if you have a pair of fine-tipped tweezers, you can easily just stick it in each hole, pinch it down, and then pull it out. But if you don't have a pair of these, don't worry. You can just use a really small screwdriver, a flathead of course, and just pry it out. And don't feel too bad if you ruin it, because the kit does include a replacement C-clip. After you remove that C-clip, you're going to find a little clear washer, the blue seal, the same exact one that's used in the Ultra Shock, a white seal, same one that's used in the Ultra Shock, followed by another blue seal, which is not always the easiest thing to get out. And then at the very bottom, there's one more clear washer. You're going to want to go through and especially check the blue seals to make sure that there isn't any damage. If there isn't any damage, then you're good to go. Get the parts that you need to replace. First goes in the small clear washer, followed by a blue, the solid hard white one, followed by another blue, and finally the big clear. Push that down as much as you can, and then you get to deal with putting this thing in. There we go. Now, there's really no foolproof method that I've figured out of how to get that stupid little C-clip in there. I think these things are way more annoying than the E-clips. But anyways, once that is sealed, you want to get the piston rod. You don't want to jam it through the hole. You're going to want to go ahead and twist it on there. Now, the reason why you don't want to jam it through is that the threading at the end will rip up those seals. So all the work that you just did would pretty much be pointless. Once you get the threading past the seals, you can pull the piston the rest of the way. Now it's just a reverse process. You're going to want to put that washer back on. Once the rod end is on, it's time to move on to the shock cap. Now, inside there is what they call the bladder. You want to go ahead and pull that out and throw it away. Get the new one, and you're going to want to push it all the way down and make sure that it sits evenly on each side. And there's going to be a little bit of bounce to it. Make sure that the dome points out. Next, you are ready to fill up the shock with silicone oil. Fill it up halfway. Move the piston around just a little bit, just to make sure there's no air bubbles. And then fill it up all the way to the top. Don't worry if it overflows. Believe me, you don't want any air in there. It does mess with the performance of the shock. After that, just go ahead and tighten the shock cap on. Once the shock cap is on, then you just have to put the shock spring back. Now, I will tell you right now, be sure not to over tighten the shock cap. Otherwise, it'll destroy the bladder and you will have oil leaking from the top of your shock. But once you get the shock spring on, as well as the braces, you are good to go. And that That's how you rebuild a big bore shock.